Do we have Josh?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, Josh, so you're talking to Mike Iscovitz and Peyton Galyean here at Fox 26. I know you've spent some time with John Dawson before, and I thank you very much. Please tell our audience, where are you right now?
Okay, at this very moment, I'm a Gulf Coast neighbor, but right now I'm in Guangdong, China. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting my
You're
names
in
all mixed
China.
up.
Look, you've been
Guangzhou.
up for days at a time. You've been up for days. You're in China. Why are you in China?
Because I was hunting what we call a hurricane, but they call a typhoon.
Okay. And this was Typhoon Ragasa.
Exactly.
Did you tell us what you experienced?
Yeah, so it was what we would call a Category 5 out over the ocean. Weakened a little bit, came in as what we would call a Category 3, and I rode it out on a little island right off mainland China, and it packed quite a punch, let's just say.
This, of course, not your only hurricane. We're actually looking at video right now from Beryl and from Debbie and some other storms that you've covered. How did this one compare?
This was it was quite intense. It surprised me how strong it was. It looked like it was weakening a little bit as it came in. The radar sort of presentation of it was degrading, but it really packed a punch. And it's a good reminder to everyone living on the Gulf Coast, even if a hurricane is weakening as it comes in, don't let your guard down, because sometimes the violence really it stays with it even as it's weakening.
And it's a great reminder for anyone on the Gulf Coast. The Gulf Coast has been through a ton of major storms the last just 7 years. And so it's calm right now, knock on wood, and hope it stays that way. But it seems like we've been battered and seen this over and over again. But it's proof that this can happen all over the world, even though they're named different things.
Right. And there are lessons to be learned, from all over the world. What are some of those lessons that you've learned? Because I know you've put together your hurricane house in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, using maybe different building techniques, or tell us about that, because this what I was just thinking was, I actually grew up in South Florida, where the building codes were strengthened significantly after Hurricane Andrew. That hasn't really happened in most other locations. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Miami-Dade County is the gold standard. It is like the top hurricane code anywhere in the United States, and it was because of Andrew. And that is typically what happens all over the world. In Australia, they have really strict codes. They call them cyclones there, but they have really strict codes. They didn't have them until 1974, when Cyclone Tracy flattened the capital city of the Northern Territory. It flattened a city called Darwin. And after that, they realized we got to build better. So my traveling around the world and hunting storms has shown me that my big takeaway is that you don't have to accept that your house is going to be damaged if it gets hit by a strong hurricane. You can build your house to withstand. And you made a point I came on, you talked about nothing being hurricane proof. It's a great point, and I want to underline that. Never claim that your house is hurricane proof. Never think of any structure as hurricane proof, but you can make it very resistant. And what I've learned is that there are things you can do to get there, or at least get as close as possible.
Something tells me, though, Josh, that means rewriting the rule book about how we build houses. Like here in Houston, everything's kind of wood construction. I don't know what you call it, like sticks, and I don't know. But right, you kind of like build a house frame and you put bricks on the outside and it kind of looks stable, but you don't know, like they don't tell you, oh, this roof can withstand X amount of wind or anything like that. And so it seems like it's just a whole change of how we would go about building a house, and like a buyer's expectations for what you think your house is going to be able to take.
Well, I think there is. I do notice that a lot of folks are not sure, what their house can withstand. Regarding stick built, I want to say one thing. There are some folks who believe that the only way to build a hurricane resistant home is to build with like poured concrete, and that's actually not so. If you build if you do a stick-built house and you do it properly and you do it with good wood and like, like large studs and everything else, and it's properly engineered, you can build a hurricane-resistant house. I mean, look at all the old homes that are over 100 years old on the Gulf Coast that have withstood everything because they were well built. So that's one thing I want to point out. There's an important principle called continuous load path. And you think of your house as like a chain, okay? There's a bunch of links. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that there's no weak links. So you want to make sure from the foundation to the bottom plate to the studs to the top plate to the rafters, you want to make sure there's no weak connection point, because that's what the wind will take advantage of. If you make sure all those connection points are strong, that's half the battle. And that goes into how your home is built, and kind of making sure that the builder is thinking of your house as a chain, as a set of links, and making sure that none of them are weak.
Let me ask you this, Josh. You've had great success using social media to convey all of these points, to share the incredible video that we just kind of looked at, from your iCyclone page. Peyton Galyean here is Weather with Peyton. She's also had a huge in her young career, had a huge amount of success on social media. Social media's become really big for weather junkies and for weather education. So where do you see that going?
It absolutely has, and it's been mostly a good thing, but it's also what we've noticed in the last year or two. It's been an opportunity for the spread of misinformation. So I think, as much as it's been a force for good and a way to deploy good information, it's been a way for folks to deploy bad information. And I think the important thing is for all folks at home to learn how to vet their sources and to learn, okay, what is an actual, reliable expert, and what is just some quack on YouTube with some professional looking graphics talking nonsense. And I think that that's really important. I think that's the big challenge of our time, is how to make sure that people know how to vet information and know what is good information.
And especially right now, we're watching that invest. It could potentially come on land. There's going to be a lot of misinformation of the models we're seeing. Is it going to go to Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas? Some models bringing up the East Coast. Yeah. Knowing who is going to see the wrong information and believe that, and who's actually going to see the right information and believe that.
So yeah, what do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
100%. Like, one thing, I get a lot of people who are just very casual weather nerds, or maybe they're not even weather nerds, and they ask me, okay, I want to stay up on hurricane season. What models should I follow? What sites should I go to? And I'm like, you shouldn't do any of that. Like, if you're just an ordinary consumer, don't look at computer models. They're not for you. They're available to all of us. We could all look at them, but we have the National Hurricane Center. We have experts there who look at all the models, and then based on that, in a knowledgeable way, interpret what the models are saying and create a forecast for you, the consumer. It is not your job to compare the Euro and the GFS and try to understand which is the better one. As a consumer, you don't have that expertise, and we have people who do that. So I just say, follow the National Hurricane Center. These are the top experts in the world, and they're doing all that work for you.
It's kind of like reviewing your own MRI scan or something like that,
It is exactly like that. And it's funny, I've had the same primary care physician for like 25 years, and he said that's a real problem now, is everyone Googles everything, and they come into the office like they're an expert. And I feel like the same thing is happening in the kind of weather space.
Yes. I'm always like, in comments, they're like, why should I believe you? And I'm like, well, you don't go into a doctor's office pretending you're a doctor, do you?
Right.
So let the people who do this for a living bring you the information that can help save your life.
Yeah, and maybe with the moment we have left, Josh, the fact that you just came from covering this cyclone that was a super typhoon at one point, and the winds were incredibly strong, the equivalent of a Category 5. And given the fact that whenever we see these storms now, there's always, everybody says, oh, it's the government went and sprayed it or whatever. But I don't think that we were flying over there in the Philippines necessarily, spraying this one. So that, to me, is one of the more frustrating trends on social media, is this belief that it's being controlled. And even though these giant hurricanes and cyclones are hitting in other parts of the world also.
Yeah, the conspiracy theories, they're so silly that you just it's crazy that all of us who are, professionals working in this space, going on TV, trying to explain to people what's happening and keep them safe, that we're having to spend so much time addressing these insane fantasies, and it's really kind of silly. And all we can do is we could just keep trying to, share the good information. And if I could, I wanted to give some actionable advice to your viewers, because I get asked a lot of times, how can I make my house more hurricane resistant? And I want everyone to have what I have. I just built a hurricane resistant house, so if I could, I'd like to share some
Yeah,
advice.
please, real quick. I'm sorry, Josh. We're almost out of time, but please, yeah, let us know.
Okay, just first of all, make sure your roof is fastened properly. Two, make sure your windows, you have impact glass or you have shutters. And three, make sure you have good siding on your house. I recommend fiber cement siding from James Hardy, which is impact resistant and will protect your home from flying debris and other hazards.
Great, great information. Josh, thank you so much for joining us from around the other side of the world. Folks, look him up, iCyclone, the letter I, Cyclone, Josh Morgerman, the Hurricane Man, the world's premier hurricane chaser. Thanks for joining us. Try to get some rest.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back after this.